Welcome to Wellywood Wargaming, where the grim dark never sleeps. Crack open a bottle of wild snake and spark up a low stick as we take a journey down Underhive.
Here it is, folks, my new and improved and fully fleshed out gang guide for the Ash Waste Nomads, taking into account everything from the new book, Tribes of the Wastelands. Let's get into it. Stalkers of the Wastes, the Ash Waste Nomads, are an enigmatic faction. Living completely separate and outside the rigid societal structure of Necromunda, they roam the planet's surface in great tribes, trading with each other and at constant war with the Hivers who would claim the Wastes as their own. In battle, an Ash Waste Nomads gang performs at its best when embracing a raiding style of play, striking hard and fast from cover before fading back into the Wastes, disappearing like ghosts in the ash. Eschewing vehicles for the more reliable dustback Helamites, it can be an intimidating prospect to come up against other gangs with large behemoths such as the Cargo 8 Ridge Hauler, but Ash Waste Nomads can level the field with their unique weapon options like the electrostatic pulse emitter. If you wish to use the battlefield to your advantage, then the Ash Waste Nomads may be the gang for you. Ash Wastes Nomads. These guys are some of the best looking models in Necromunda. They are a direct hybrid between the Fremen of Dune and the Tusken Raiders in Star Wars as well. So if you like those two things combined with a bunch of insect parts too, then you'll love Ash Waste Nomads. That was a little excerpt from why you would play an Ash Waste Nomad gang in Necromunda from Games Workshop's sort of design perspective, and I would have to agree with it. Now that we have this book, now that we have a fully fleshed out gang, we have serious close combat options, and we have a really long-range, snipey, quite shooty, stealthy gang. The Ash Waste Nomads on a whole are very fast. The stat that sticks out the most when you look at them on paper is actually their movement, as opposed to, say, toughness on Goliath or other sort of things like ballistic skill on Van Saar. The Ash Waste Nomad sort of stat that stands out is generally movement. These guys are highly mobile and very easy to position. If you're playing in the Ash Wastes, they can hide in the Wastes. We have long rifles available as basic weapons on all of your gang members. They are a really nice gang with a lot of range and a lot of sort of tricks up their sleeve as well. However, the main downside we have with Ash Waste Nomads as written, and I say this as written, is because this is where arbitrators come in. At the moment, Ash Waste Nomads are, of course, designed to be made in the Ash Wastes and in Ash Wastes games of Necromunda. Less terrain, more vehicles, and more ways that you can actually use the Ash Waste Nomads special rules. However, if your arbitrator is cool with you doing this stuff in the Underhive setting, the Ash Waste Nomads suddenly become more appealing. Otherwise, they can feel a little bit limited in that regard. However, we're going to explore everything today in how to build an Ash Wastes gang, how to play it, and all of the stats and nitty-gritty that's involved with your Ash Waste Nomads. So strap in, because this is going to be a long one. Like all my other gang guides, I am not going to explore the lore here at all, but if you want to get the book Tribes of the Wastelands, there's some really, really juicy and awesome lore written in here, so I highly recommend it for that reason alone. Let's get into the actual mechanics and rules of how Ash Waste Nomads actually operate in your games of Necromunda. Firstly, they are an outlaw gang, and all of the rules apply around outlaws and lawful gangs. Ash Waste Nomads are always outlaws, and they can never be a lawful gang. They also can't enter into any alliances either. Alliances are strictly off the table for Ash Waste Nomads for obvious reasons. In terms of hired guns, there are really not many available to Ash Waste Nomads. Only the ones that specifically state they are available to the Nomads can be used here. Likewise with hangers-on, the only ones that are actually available to Ash Waste Nomads we're going to discuss, and they're all available in this book. The Nomad Trading Post. So this is new for the new book, Tribes of the Wastelands, and this is a dedicated trading post just for Ash Waste Nomads that allows them to get a couple of new things aside from their actual gang list, but it gives you options on fighters that don't get some of this equipment from starting. Again though, we'll discuss this trading list later on. So the next thing is territories and how Ash Waste Nomads operate in your campaigns in Necromunda, depending on the campaign type. So what I like here from Games Workshop is the inclusion of this little bit of a blurb here. Although the Ash Waste Nomads gang list is designed with the Outlands campaign in mind, arbitrators may wish to allow players to use them in any of the other campaigns available. While some campaigns, such as the Outlanders campaign for Necromunda Book of the Outcast, need very little work to allow Ash Waste Nomads to feature, others require more effort. Presented opposite are rules for Ash Waste Nomads in Dominion campaigns. These make a great starting point for allowing Ash Waste Nomads to participate in any of the other Necromunda campaign types. So again, I reiterate, it's purely up to the arbitrator here how you integrate these into your ordinary non-Ash Waste campaigns, but I am absolutely cool with it, and I think most sort of arbitrators out there should also be cool with it too. So Ash Waste Nomads in a Dominion campaign, which is the most sort of vanilla and most typically played campaign in Necromunda, operate in a few different ways. So during the occupation phase, instead of taking over and gaining a territory, what they have to do instead is do something called raid territory, which is as follows. Replace the territory with an old ruins territory, and if it is claimed, it becomes unclaimed, as it has been razed to the ground by the Ash Waste Nomads. Note the Ash Waste Nomads gain no boons from it either. The Ash Waste Nomads add 4d6 times 10 credits to their stash as they are taking anything of value with them from the territory. So it's pretty cool here. Instead of getting the boons and the long-term bonuses that you might get from an ordinary territory, instead you get a nice big cash injection in the form of 4d6 times 10 credits, which can be quite a lot and a good way of leveling the playing field, especially if you're taking these every campaign week. Now, instead of a settlement in a campaign, the Nomads get a unique territory called a Nomad Outpost, and the rules are as follows. So in terms of generating income, the Outpost gives you 2d6 times 10 credits in the collecting income step. A gang can never take control of the Nomad Outpost. However, if they win a battle against this outpost, they will get 5 rep for it. So big rep for fighting against Nomads in their home turf and winning. In terms of other campaigns, it's just up to the arbitrator's discretion on how you want to do it in Uprising, Law and Misrule, or any of the other campaign types. I think you should allow Ash Waste to be played in any of those, because otherwise they're just not going to see a lot of table time. Now for the fighter types. The first one is the Ash Waste Leader or Kartragi Chieftain. He is 120 credits and the stats are as follows. We've got movement 6, nice and fast, weapon skill 3+, and ballistic skill 4+ here. Strength and toughness 3, wounds 2, initiative 3+, and attacks 2 as well, with the mental stats of leadership 5+, cool 5+, willpower and intelligence 6+. So actually a really nice stats across the board. The only letdown really there is the ballistic skill of 4+ being distinctly average. Generally, you're going to be using this guy as an overseer caddy for your heavy weapons, or a close combat specialist that backs up your Shadar hunters. We'll get into that in more details later. 120 credits is expensive, but what you have to factor in here is that we have the baked in cost of 2 pieces of equipment here in the Sky Mantle and the Ash Cloak, which we'll talk about in a second. The ordinary gang rules here for a leader come in. So we've got the gang leader special rules. You must have one at the start of your campaigns. So you always have to have a leader. If he dies, your champion can take over. We've also got the gang hierarchy here as well. So he has that 12-inch bubble on cool checks and stuff. You've also got tools of the trade here as well, so this fighter can have multiple equipment sets as well. Group activation 2, the same as most other leaders as well. And in terms of skills, he does get a free skill when you purchase him as well. The skills in question here for primary, we have, of course, leadership, savant, and cunning. So some nice skill selections in there. I like cunning and savant together. It's a nice combo. I would think about taking overseer or perhaps infiltrate and a bunch of other skills that you've got here. In terms of secondary, we get agility, combat, and wastelands as well. So A nice spread of skills on this guy, but no ferocity or shooting makes this guy a little bit more of a close combat threat generally throughout a campaign. In terms of the weapon access for the chieftain here, we have the blast carbine for 25 credits, the blast rifle for 15 credits, and the scavenged auto gun for 10 credits. Blast pistol, scavenged stub gun, and web pistol for 90 credits there as well in terms of the pistols. Special weapons here, we get the long rifle venom caster, which is nasty, and a web gun as well, which is extra nasty. We also get access to the 2 heavy weapons that Nomads get. So we get the heavy blaster for 140 credits and the charge caster for 155 credits, both of which were in my top 10 heavy weapons in the game, and they are both brilliant weapons. However, on a ballistic skill 4+ fighter, not so much. In terms of close combat weapons, we get the chain lance for 55 credits, which is a pretty good weapon. The long blade, which is also a pretty good weapon, for 30 credits. Mono hook for 35 credits, and the stalking knife for 20 credits there as well. We only have flak and mesh armor available for the leader here at 10 credits and 15 credits respectively. But you do get access to all 3 field armors here as well. So the conversion field for 60 credits, the displacer field for 70 credits, and the refractor field for 50 credits there as well. I love the displacer field on these guys, but 70 credits is a bit steep, especially at gang creation. In terms of personal equipment, we get the Bio Booster drop rig, filter plugs, grav chute, Medicaid kit, photo goggles, rocket pack for 5 credits, which we'll discuss later, it's awesome, and the servo harness partial for 130 credits there as well. Infrasight, monosight, suspensors, and telescopic sight there as well. And in terms of exotic beasts and pets, 0 to 2 of the Ashwing Hellamites for 30 credits, and 0 to 2 of the Unbound Hellamite as well, also for 30 credits. And that is your chieftain. The next fighter is, of course, the standard champion, and he is known as the Watcher, the Nakutari Watcher. Now, they're a little bit different in terms of the stats, and they are the only fighter in your gang with average movement of movement 5, which is a little bit weird, but these are your heavy weapon platforms. These are your main shooters in the gang. Now, 100 credits, movement 5, weapon skill 4+, but ballistic skill 3+, so the opposite way round from the chieftain there. Strength and toughness 3, 2 wounds, initiative 3+, and 2 attacks here as well. We have a leadership and cool of 6+, and a willpower and intelligence of 7+. So still pretty damn good on the mental stats there as well, but obviously the ballistic skill 3+ there is the highlight, especially when these guys get access to those juicy heavy weapons. Now, they are gang hierarchy champions, so they get the 6-inch bubble of cool checks on them as opposed to the chieftain's 12 inches. They also have the tools of the trade rule as well as group activation 1, so they can take one fighter with them. In terms of skill access, we have cunning as a secondary, leadership as a secondary, savant as a secondary, but for primaries we get shooting, excellent, and Wastelands as well, which has some really good ones in there too. Shooting and Wastelands, very, very nice combination indeed. In terms of the weapons here, exactly the same list that you're going to get for your leader. In fact, I can't see anything different on it, but the Charge Caster and Heavy Blaster are the obvious ones on these guys. If you want to go cheap though, long rifles all the way for your champions. And that is your Watcher champion. The next one to talk about is your Specialist champion. Now, this guy is the Witari Stormcaller, and he is 120 credits, and he's a little bit different to everything else in your gang. His stats are as follows: movement 5, weapon skill 3+, ballistic skill 4+, strength toughness 3, wounds 2, initiative 3, and 2 attacks. He has 8+ on leadership, 6+ on cool, 6+ on willpower, and 7+ on intelligence. So similar to the Watcher there, but instead, again, of having the good ballistic skill, instead he gets the good weapon skill. So definitely more proficient in close combat there. Tools of the trade, again, on this guy, the same hierarchy champion rule of 6 inches as well. They also have the Born in the Saddle special rule, so this guy is always mounted and must always have a Dustback Hellamite in his war gear. Now, the special rule that the Witari Stormcaller gets is as follows: change weather. Now, this is a double action to do it, and if the Visibility X rule is not active for this battle, apply the Visibility 24-inch rule. Otherwise, either increase or decrease the value of X by 6 to a minimum of 6. These effects last for the remainder of the battle and can be modified further by future uses of this ability. So you can just park him somewhere and just keep on messing around with the visibility rule to your heart's content as much as it suits you, and you can take advantage of it, and your opponent can't see you at all. It's pretty nice, but again, it's only really going to be used in Ash Waste battles. In terms of skill access, we get combat and cunning as secondary, leadership as secondary, but savant and the other one would be wastelands as well as primary. So slightly different there. I can see myself giving fixer to this guy just for a little bit of extra cash, D3 times 10 credits at the end of every battle, and just hiding him somewhere. 120 credits is very expensive though, but it is what it is. In terms of the equipment here, we get pretty much the same stuff here. We can't have heavy weapons though, but we can have special weapons, basic weapons, pistols, and close combat weapons here as well as the unique Stormcaller staff for 35 credits that this guy gets too. And also the exotic beasts, which I forgot to mention on the Watcher, by the way. 0-2 Ashwing Hellamites for 30 credits and 0-2 Unbound Hellamites as well for 30 credits, which are going to be more useful on this guy here, the Stormcaller. The next fighter type is the unique prospect for Ash Waste Nomads, and this is the mounted fighter, the Dust Rider. These are 80 credits and they come on the Dustback Helamites, and they are your fast attack units. 80 credits included with the Dustback Helamite here. We have movement 5, weapon skill 4+, ballistic skill 4+, strength and toughness 3, wounds 1, initiative 3+, and attacks 2, which is pretty nice. Leadership 9+, cool 7+, willpower 8+, and intelligence 9+ there. Again, we have tools of the trade on these guys as well because they are prospects. They're also Gang Fighter X special rule as well, which means that you've got to have at least a half of your gang made up of either the Dust Riders, the Juves, and the Warriors as well. So that's a special rule there too. They also get promoted slightly differently here as well. If during the downtime phase of a campaign this fighter has gained 5 or more advancements, this fighter may be promoted to become either an Ash Waste Nomads Watcher or an Ash Waste Nomads Stormcaller as the controlling player wishes. They also have the Born in the Saddle special rule using the Dustback Helamite as their war gear option. They have Hot-Headed and they have Fast Learner as well. Hot-Headed means that if they get seriously injured or taken out of action next to another fighter, they don't need to make a cool check because they just don't really care about these guys. They also have Fast Learner as well. This fighter may improve a characteristic any number of times up to the maximum for the basic XP cost, not the extra each time that you have to do it. So they level up a bit quicker here as well. In terms of skills, for secondary, they have Agility and Ferocity, and for primary, they have Cunning as well. In terms of the weapons here, we get access to the basic weapons, pistols, and special weapons and close combat weapons that we had on everybody else, minus the mono hook and the Stormcaller staff, of course, but you do get access to the chain lance, long blade, and stalking knife. We also have flak armor, mesh armor, and some personal equipment in the bio booster, bio scanner, filter plugs, and photo goggles. They can also have 0-2 unbound Helamites as well, but not the Ash ones. So not the flying ones, just the unbound ones for 30 credits. The next fighter is the Warrior. This is your Ganger type, and they are 60 credits. So again, all of these come baked in with the Ash Cloak and Sky Mantle that we're going to talk about in a little bit more detail soon. The Ganger has a movement 6, which is great. Weapon skill 4+, ballistic skill 4+, strength and toughness 3, wounds 1, initiative 3+, and attacks 1. So the highlight really, high initiative, high movement, very maneuverable and good. We've got leadership 7+, cool of 6+, willpower 7+, and intelligence 8+ there as well. They are a Gang Fighter X as well, so at least half of your gang has to be made up of these Juves and the prospects as well. They have Wastelands Snipers, which is a pretty cool special rule as well, giving them access to long rifles as basic instead of special weapons. So that is a really big one. And most of the time, you're going to want to give these guys long rifles. When you purchase your gang to begin with, one of your warriors can become a specialist straight out of the gate as well. So you can give him special weapons as well as the long rifle as a basic, but you can also level up slightly differently with the specialist mechanics there too. They also have tools of the trade on the specialist, but not on the actual warrior himself. Those are the only special rules that you get with the warrior. In terms of the skill access, we have Agility and Cunning as primary, with Ferocity and Shooting as secondary. So Ferocity is really nice thrown in there, even if it is just a secondary. In terms of the weapon access here, we have blast carbines, blast rifles, long rifles, and scavenged auto guns, all as basic weapons. Blast pistols, scavenged stub guns as well. Special weapons, we get the Venom Caster and Web Gun here, and the Charge Caster with shock and crack blast rockets as well is actually available for your specialist. So you can have heavy weapons on the specialist, which is really nice too. We then have the long blade and stalking knife are the only close combat options, and the same personal equipment that you get on many of the other fighters that we've already talked about. Infra sights, mono sights, suspensors, and telescopic sights in there too. That is your warrior or ganger type for the Nomads. The next fighter type is your dedicated close combat guy in the Shadar Hunter. These guys are available in their own box. The miniatures are flipping awesome, and they also come with the Anthromite Spine Worm, which is exclusive to these guys as a pet too. The Ash Waste Nomads Shadar Hunter is a specialist ganger type. They do have Gang Fighter X, so again, half of your gang at least must be made up of these and or other fighters with the Gang Fighter X special rule. These guys are 65 credits, so only 5 credits more than your average ganger, and the stats are more or less the same. We have movement 6, weapon skill, ballistic skill 4+, strength and toughness 3, wounds 1, initiative 3+, and attacks 2. So a slightly better and more improved stat there for only 5 credits I think is definitely worth it, especially if you're a close combat fighter. In terms of mental stats though, we get 7+, 6+, 7+, 8+ on leadership, cool, willpower and intelligence there. As a specialist fighter type, they do also get tools of the trade here as well. Not that you're really going to use it on these guys. And the unique special rule here is Wasteland Ambushes. So, during an Ash Waste battle, if this fighter would be deployed as part of a gang's starting crew, they may instead be placed to one side at the start of any end phase. After the first, they may then be deployed anywhere on the battlefield, at least 9 inches from an enemy model, along with their exotic beasts. Also, it does not specify whether you have to be in line of sight or not, so you could just be right out in the open in front of a guy, 9 inches away, and in charge range with your versatile weapons and spine worms. Nasty. In terms of skill access, we get Cunning as primary with Wastelands and Combat as secondary here as well. The starting equipment list is quite small for the Nomad Hunters, but they can of course go to the trading post during a campaign and get better stuff. In terms of the close combat weapons here though, we get the Bone Talons for 20 credits, the Chitin Dagger and the Chitin Gauntlet for 15 and 25 credits. We have the Insective Knife for 20 credits, the Trident for 30 credits, the Venom Stave for 35 credits, and the Venom Whip for 30 credits as well. Flak Armor and Mesh Armor, Bio Boosters, Drop Rigs, Filter Plugs, Photo Goggles, and Venom Sacks for 35 credits, which are pretty much the same as your Chemsynth for Escher and whatnot as well. And we also get access to 0 to 2 Anthromite Spine Worms for 45 credits a pop. So they are your shock attack units. They are primarily close combat and come with some nasty worms as well, which we're going to take a look at in a second. Again though, it's down to arbitrators whether you let Ash Waste Nomads into the Underhive and whether or not you let them use their unique Wasteland Ambushes rule in Underhive settings as well. That is completely up to the arbitrator's consent there, but I would. Next fighter type is your Juve. This is the Runtani Dust Runner, and they are 35 credits, and I love these little guys. Their movement's 6 inches, which is fast as hell. Again, weapon skill and ballistic skill 5+, so not great. Strength toughness 3, wounds 1, initiative 3+, and attacks 1 as well. Leadership 9+, cool 7+, willpower 8+, and intelligence 9+. So typical Juve type stats here really. Nothing to write home about. They have the Juve special rule here as well, so Gang Fighter X applies to these guys too. Promotion is slightly different here as well. Again, if this fighter has gained 5 or more advancements, the fighter may be promoted to become an Ash Waste Nomad Specialist. And also they have the Fast Learner skill as well. In terms of skill access here, we get Cunning as a primary and Ferocity and Agility as secondaries here as well. The equipment list in question, again for the Juves, is quite small, but they can get basic weapons, which is huge here. We get the Blast Carbine, the Blast Rifle, and the Scavenged Auto Gun as well. What I love most about these guys is, yes, they've got ballistic skill 5+, but they are fast, and if you give them a Blast Carbine, it has +2 to hit at 10-inch range with shock. It's very, very good. 25 credits is definitely worth it, and that's the weapon of choice that I'm generally going to give to my Juves most of the time. Pistols, we get the Blast Pistol and Scavenge Stub Gun, and the Long Blade and Stalking Knife for close combat there as well. flak and mesh for armor, and bio booster drop rig, filter plugs, photo goggles, and rocket pack as well. So that's a quick overview of all the different fighter types for Ash Waste Nomads. Later on in this video, I'm going to give you some list building advice and some of my example lists and explore some of the interactions and mechanics and ways that you can build your Nomads using those different fighter types. Now for all the pets and insects and nasty little greeblies we get with Ash Waste Nomads. Now these guys I mentioned just a moment ago, Anthromite spineworms, are exclusive to your Shadar hunters. They are not available for any other fighter type. They're 45 credits and the stats are as follows. By the way, you can have 0 to 2 of these on your Shadar hunters as well. Movement 6, so they're the same speed, which is nice. You don't want a disparity between your pet's movement and the owner's movement. Weapon skill 4+, ballistic skill 6+. They have strength and toughness 3, wounds 1, initiative 3+, and 1 attack, with 8+, 7+, 8+, 9+ on the mental stats there as well. Also, they have some special rules here too. They are a small target, meaning that they are -1 to hit, which is fantastic. And they also have burrowing as well, meaning they can go through impassable terrain, provided that they end up on the other side legally in terms of moving and stuff. So they can go under walls and attack you from all sorts of weird places. They have cunning as a primary skill access and agility as a secondary access here as well. And they are armed with barbed fangs, which we'll go into in a bit more detail shortly. The next two types of pets here are really cool. We've got the Unbound Helamite, or Helamite, however you want to say it. They are 30 credits and they have the same stats as your regular Helamite. They are movement 8, weapon skill 5+, ballistic skill 6+, strength and toughness 3, wounds 1, initiative 3+, attacks 1, with 8, 7+, 8+, 8+ on the mental stats there. They have a special rule as spare mount. So what these guys are, basically, when you watch an old Western movie and there's a cowboy on a horse and he's leading a bunch of other horses with no riders and no saddles, that's what these things are. You have a spare mount. So the special rule for the spare mount is quite cool. If an Unbound Helamite's owner is equipped with a Dustback Helamite and placed prone and pinned whilst within 1 inch of a standing and active Unbound Helamite, they may make an initiative test. If the test is passed, the Unbound Helamite changes its status to prone and pinned instead of its owner. Very cool. It acts a bit like Nerves of Steel, except it's using your initiative, which is pretty good, by the way, on most Nomads. So I really like this one. And for 30 credits, it can be pretty good. This can be really clutch in games. But again, you're only really going to be using these guys in the Ash Wastes sort of campaigns as well. They do come with the Mighty Leap skill, which is pretty cool, as well as Helamite Claws as well, which are just flat melee attacks with -1 AP. The last pet, and actually my favorite so far, is the Ashwing Helamite. Now this is a flying version of a Helamite. You can have 0 to 2 of these on your leaders and champs, and they're 30 credits. The stats are movement 8, they are weapon skill 4+, which is average, ballistic skill 6+, strength toughness 3, wounds 1, initiative 2+, attacks 1, and 9+, 8+, 9+, 10+ on the mental stats there. The special rules here are flight. These guys can traverse the battlefield and just flap all over the place. They also have long leash, meaning instead of staying within 3 inches of their owner, they have a 9-inch max, which is pretty cool. And they have a really unique sort of new mechanic called the Ashwing Lure here. Now your owner can do a basic action to deploy the lure, and it is as follows. Place an Ashwing Lure in base contact with this fighter for the remainder of the battle. Any Ashwing Helamites this fighter controls treat the Ashwing Lure as if it were their owner. The Ashwing Lure may be moved as if it were a loot casket and may not be targeted by attacks. Once an Ashwing Lure has been placed on the battlefield, all Ashwing Helamites it controls may be activated as a single group activation as well. So really, really cool. You can just plop this thing down and leave it and just sort of like keep an area on lock. Tactically, I quite like this, but you can also drag it around and reposition it as well, just like you would with a loot casket. I really like this, and the fact that these guys are weapon skill 4+ and movement 8 and only 30 credits with toxic venom, by the way, and their mandibles, they're pretty damn good. In terms of brutes and hangers-on, we've got a couple of unique ones here. The first one is the Nomad Anthromite Herder here. This guy is 40 credits, and he has a movement of 5, weapon skill 3+, ballistic skill 4+, strength and toughness 3, wounds 1, initiative 4+, and attacks 1, with leadership 7+, cool 5+, and willpower 6+, intelligence 7+ on this guy too. This guy has some unique special rules, of course, as a hanger hanger on. His job is to look after your Anthromite Dune Scuttlers, should you have some. During the post-battle sequence, a Nomad Anthromite Herder may tend to the wounds of an Anthromite Dune Scuttler. If the Anthromite Dune Scuttler is critically injured, it goes into recovery. Otherwise, roll a d6. On a 3+, the Anthromite Dune Scuttler heals any lasting injuries it has and goes into recovery. This cannot be performed in the same post-battle sequence as the training program ability. Training program. During the post-battle sequence, a Nomad Anthromite Herder may attempt to train an Anthromite Dune Scuttler. Make an intelligence check for the Nomad Anthromite Herder. If successful, the Anthromite Dune Scuttler earns D3 XP. This cannot be performed in the same post-battle sequence as the Anthromite Whisperer ability. So there you go, 2 unique special rules we have there for the Herder. This guy is armed with a Hunter's Polearm, Mesh Armor, and an Ash Cloak. And a Nomad Anthromite Herder has the Ghost of the Waste skill as well, which was one of the Wasteland skills we'll talk about in a bit. The next thing, of course, to talk about is the brute in question, the Anthromite Dune Scuttler. You can buy both of these miniatures together from Forge World, by the way, and they are glorious, glorious miniatures. The Dune Scuttler, you get 0 to 2 of these things, and they're 210 credits, and they are really, really scary. The stats are as follows. We have movement 6, so pretty fast, weapon skill 3+, ballistic skill 5+, strength and toughness 5, wounds 3, initiative 3+, and attacks 4. So like a very scary, fast Ogrin with lots of attacks. You have leadership 7+, cool 8+, willpower 8+, and intelligence 8+ there as well. They are armed with mandibles and equipped with heavy carapace armor, giving them a 3+ save as well. Pretty nice. The Anthromite Dune Scuttlers are notoriously hard to kill. When rolling on the lasting injury table for an Anthromite Dune Scuttler, roll twice and apply whichever result the controlling player wishes. Really nice to have on a brute because these things are expensive. When they die in the first game, it's pretty nasty. Now they come with skills as well. They come with clamber, meaning they can just go up the side of buildings at their normal speed. They come with fearsome, making them a bit harder to charge, causing a willpower check if you want to fight them. And nerves of steel. Yes, you've only got a cool of 8+, but nerves of steel is just one of the best skills in the game. And when it comes off on this guy, he's going to be charging you. And it's going to be very nasty. So, yeah, that's what you get with the Anthromite Dune Scuttler. They have access to the agility skill sets on secondary, combat on primary, and ferocity on secondary there as well. And, yeah, a very, very good brute for your nomads there. New to this book, we have the addition of Nomad exclusive Hive Scum and Bounty Hunters as well, with slightly different rules around them. The Nomad Outcast is a 30 credit Hive Scum, effectively available to Nomads. You can have up to 5 of these at a time, and you can recruit them as hangers-on and hired guns. They have the same stats as your Underhive type of scum, with movement 5, ballistic skill and weapon skill 4+, strength and toughness 3, wounds 1, initiative 4+, attacks 1, and all 8+ on the mental stats there as well. However, one added bonus here is you do get the Ash Cloak and Sky Mantle baked into their cost, and up to 60 credits worth of weapons and war gear from their own little list here. What that has on it is blast carbines, blast rifles, scavenged auto guns, and shotguns, which is nice. Blast pistols, scavenged stub gun, long rifle, long blade, stalking blade, and flak or mesh, with the usual sort of personal equipment and weapon accessories there as well. Pretty nice. They're basically a Hive Scum. They have access to less stuff, but you do get those long rifles and you do get the shotguns, which add something extra to your nomads in terms of damage output, actually. So what we have here instead of bounty hunters are Nomad Harriers. These things are 80 credits and basically operate exactly the same as your ordinary Underhive bounty hunters. We have 3 different stat profiles at 80 credits, and there's a bunch of special rules here as well. You get what you pay for. Unlike other fighters, Nomad Harriers are not counted during the choose crew step of the pre-battle sequence. Instead, at the end of this step, any Nomad Harriers available to the gang may be added to the crew, regardless of the crew selection method in use. They also have a special rule called Dead Not Alive. Any gang that employs a Nomad Harrier may claim a reward from the Nomad tribes for enemies they eliminate. During the post-battle sequence, when an enemy deletes a dead fighter from their roster, the gang that hired the Nomad Harrier immediately claims half of that fighter's value, rounded up to the nearest 5 credits as a reward. So that's the same as your ordinary bounty hunter there. We then have claiming salvage as well. Any gang that employs a Nomad Harrier may claim a reward from their tribes for enemy vehicles they help to wreck. If during the battle recruiting gang wrecks an enemy vehicle, roll a d6 on the receive reward step of the post-battle sequence. On a roll of 3 or higher, the Nomad Harrier recognizes the vehicle's remains as containing particularly valuable salvage. The gang is given their cut of the salvage, immediately receiving d6 times 10 credits. That's pretty cool. We also have the same bounty hunter rule here as well, called We'll Get Our Bit. If at the end of the update roster step of the post-battle sequence, only one of the dead, not alive, or claiming salvage special rules has been used, roll a d6. If the result is 4 or higher, the Nomad Harrier is dissatisfied with their earnings and is available for the recruiting gang's next battle for free. If the result is a 1 to 3, they take their credits and leave. Also, if neither the dead, not alive, or claiming salvage special rules are used, there is no need to roll, and the Nomad Harrier is available for the next battle as well. If, however, both the dead, not alive, and claiming salvage special rules are used, they are happy and they automatically leave. And if the Nomad Harrier is available for free the next battle, they automatically leave the one after that as well. So all of that's quite a lot of information there. In terms of skills here, you can choose 3 random skills from the generic skill sets of your choosing. So you pick the skill set and then you roll a random and then you re-roll duplicates, or you can pick 1 random and 1 of choice. So it's up to you whether you want to tailor them to you or just take a chance and take 3 skills. Personally, I think 3 randoms are nearly always better than 2. In terms of equipment, they get access to 150 credits worth of weapons and war gear from the Nomad trading post, and they can take up to 5 weapons as well because they're bounty hunters. We then have house agents exclusive for Nomads as well, again with 3 different stat profiles here. The hiring fee varies for agents, and this really is up to whether you use them in your campaigns as well. The way that they work, though, is that you have to petition for them. So a gang does not simply hire a house agent. Instead, a house agent may be dispatched to aid a gang when a petition is made by a gang leader. If a gang wishes to hire a house agent, the controlling player must roll on the following table during the appropriate step of the pre-battle sequence. On a d6 roll of 1 to 5, the house heeds the gang's plea for aid and a house agent is dispatched. The gang may hire one for 40 credits. We then have on a 6 to 10, the house reluctantly agrees to send aid to the gang, but it will cost them 80 credits instead of 40 credits. And 11 to 15, the gang may not hire one at all. And on a 16 plus, if your rep is too huge, the house is angered that such a capable and notorious gang, and they charge you d6 times 10 credits as well as punishment there. Note that you can make a petition for a house agent or roll on the house favors table. You cannot do both. Now they have the same rules for skills and equipment here. They get 150 credits worth of stuff from the Nomad trading post. They come baked in with the Ash Cloak and Sky Mantle, and the skill choices here, again, 3 random or 1 random and 1 chosen there too. That is the Nomad House Agent. The only Dramatis Personae that we're going to mention here, and the only one that's actually included in this book, is Asun Gar, the Lady of Ash. There is a video that I've done on the entirety of her rules, so go and check that out in my Hired Guns and Dramatis Personae series to find out more about her. Okay, the next thing we're going to talk about for Ash Waste Nomads is their unique skill tree, the Wastelands Skills. Now, there are 6 of these, and some of them are great, some of them are not so great. The first one is Ghost of the Wastes. While this fighter is equipped with a Sky Mantle, they treat the Hide in the Wastes double action as a basic action. In addition, if fighting in an Underhive battle, this fighter may perform the Hide in the Waste basic action as if it was an Ash Wastes battle. So, again, this one comes into the arbitration. If you're letting people use Sky Mantles in the Underhive as well, then this is pretty good. You can use it as a basic action instead of a double. But it does specify here that if your arbitrator is not cool with it, of course, you can use it in Underhive as a Sky Mantle normally. So it's pretty interesting there. It's nice that they've got some clarity on it too. The next one is Stormwalker. So if the fighter starts their activation while on the battlefield surface, they may add 2 inches to their movement characteristic. That one's pretty cool. Again, though, it depends on whether you're actually playing on Ash Waste stuff as well there. Eyes of the Wastelands is the next one. This fighter treats the visibility rule as being 6 inches greater than it actually is. In addition, when using the pitch black rules, they can target hidden models up to 9 inches away, which is pretty nice there as well. So you could stack that with a infrasight or something, or photo goggles, just to get extra 6 inches on it. It's pretty nice. The next one is Beast Handler. While subject to the mounted condition, this fighter increases the value of X for the additional attacks X trait of a weapon they are equipped with by 1. So you get more attacks when you're on a Hellamite, basically. Again, this is really only going to apply to your Stormcaller because he's the only guy who can take skills. Number 5 is Ever Vigilant. So when making reaction attacks, this fighter makes 1 additional attack and doesn't suffer any penalty for turning to face their opponent. It's very situational, but it's quite nice to have. It's certainly not an optimal skill choice, though. The best skill here in the list is as follows: Bring It Down. This fighter may perform the Bring It Down basic action. Designate an enemy model in line of sight. For the remainder of the round, all friendly fighters, including this fighter, may ignore the rules for target priority and may re-roll the dice to hit when performing the shoot basic action against the designated target. That is an excellent skill and absolutely by far trumps the rest of them in this skill set. So yeah, if you've got access to Wasteland Skills, that one's a goodie, and that's the one you're going to take most of the time. All right then, so the unique mechanic for Ash Waste Nomads is that of the warrior spirits. Each tribe has 6 different warrior spirits that you can channel in your games with your nomads. And what you got to do first is pick one of the 4 different tables here. That is going to be which tribe your nomads are from. Then within that, we have 6 different warrior spirits. Now, the way that this works is when you start a game, the crew that you've got on the field of battle, depending on how many leaders and champs you've got, you roll a d6 for every leader and champ, and then you consult the table to see which of the warrior spirits that you can get. Duplicates still count. They are then used as a sort of one-shot, almost like an extra tactics card, I suppose. You can only use them once, and you can take your pick which ones you use on who. So say, for example, you've got a leader and 2 champions. You will get 3 warrior spirits to use, and it's up to you, once you've rolled for them, which ones you use on who and when. Right then, let's get into the 4 different tribes in question. The first one is the Oil Run Stalkers. Now, what they get access to here on number 1 is the Sump Spirit. The fighter channels the Sump Spirit of Necromunda and its ability to seep into every location. For the duration of this activation, the fighter may pass through impassable terrain, though it may not end its activation with its base overlapping impassable terrain. That one's a goodie. I really do like that one. So that's the Sump Spirit there. Number 2 is the Mutation Spirit. The fighter's body becomes malleable, twisting and reshaping itself as the Mutation Spirit moves through them until the round's end phase increase both their strength and toughness by 1. So it's a little bit like a mini Stim Slug stash, that one. Not amazing. I definitely like the Sump Spirit so far. The next one is the Vapor Spirit. As the fighter calls upon the Spirit of Vapor, they become weightless, able to rise and fall at will. For the duration of this activation, they may ignore all terrain, move freely between levels without restriction, and cannot fall. They may not, however, ignore impassable terrain and may not end their movement with their base overlapping an obstacle or another model. So what you get for a turn is flight. Very, very cool indeed. The next one is the Radiation Spirit. A baleful glow surrounds the fighter as they call upon the Spirit of Radiation to suffuse their weapon attacks. For the duration of this fighter's activation, all attacks made by this fighter gain the Rad Phase trait. This one's pretty good. It stacks with any weapons that you're using. Heaven forbid you're using a Venom caster or something, but it's also dishing out Rad Phage. Very nasty indeed. The next one is Carapace Spirit. As the fighter draws the spirit of Carapace to themselves, their skin grows thicker and hardens to form a protective shell until this round's end phase. Apply a +1 modifier to armor saves, not field armor, made for this fighter. If this fighter is not equipped with armor, they instead get a 6+ save. So that's pretty cool. Just gives them +1 to their armor save. But again, not game breaking. I think the flight one there and the sort of effectively burrowing one there as well are pretty cool though. The last one is the Miasma Spirit. This one has smog swirls around the fighter as they invoke the Spirit of Miasma, hiding them in a haze of smoke and ash. Until this round's end phase, this fighter is always considered to be in partial cover. Nice, adds parcel cover to you. If you've got, I don't know, maybe evade as well, that will stack pretty nicely as well. Okay, the next one is the Dust Wall Crawlers. The first spirit is the Chitin spirit. Calling on the spirit of Chitin, the fighter's skin deflects even the sharpest blades, so nothing can cut it. Until this round's end phase, treat all weapons that target this fighter as if their AP characteristic is 0. That's pretty nice. I do like that one. We've then got the Toxin spirit. The spirit of toxin permeates the air around this fighter, poisoning those close within the miasma. Before this fighter performs any actions this activation, every enemy fighter within 3 inches of this fighter suffers an immediate strength 0, AP 0, damage 0 hit as if from a weapon with the toxin trait. So if you've been mobbed by a bunch of guys, suddenly they're all hit with toxin. It's situational, but it's pretty cool. We then have the Fire Spirit. The fighter harnesses the tormented fire spirit of Necromunda, channeling its rage into frenzied attacks. Choose a friendly fighter within 12 inches. This may be the active fighter for the duration of this fighter's next activation or their current activation. Add 2 to their attacks characteristic and +1 to their weapon skill rolls that they make. That one's really good. Again, situational, but if you really want to delete someone in close combat, that one's nice. The next one is the Darkness Spirit. An inky miasma rises up from the ground, shrouding the fighter in the spirit of darkness. Until this round's end phase, the fighter is only hit by attacks on a natural roll of 6. That one is very good. The next one is the Insect Spirit. Drawing upon the spirit of insects, the fighter is surrounded by a maelstrom of insects clogging nearby engine intakes and restricting other fighters' movement. Until the round's end phase, any enemy vehicle that moves within 3 inches of this fighter must make a handling test. If the test is failed, they change their status to stationary and stalled. In addition, all enemy fighters treat the area within 3 inches as difficult terrain as well. Not my favourite one so far. The last one is the Blood Spirit. So until this round's end phase, any time an injury roll is made, the effects applied to this fighter. Any enemy fighter engaged with this fighter suffers a toxin attack there as well. We then have the Sungar, the third list here, the Grey Waste Walkers. So the first one is the Ash Spirit. Ashen winds roll around the fighter, choking and blinding their foes and making it all but impossible for them to land a decisive blow upon their adversary. Before this fighter performs any actions this activation, all enemy fighters within 3 inches of this fighter must pass an initiative test or become subject to the blind condition. That one I do like. We then have the Electro Spirit. Coruscating energy surrounds the fighter as the static from the storm were drawn to them, which they direct into their weapon attacks. For the duration of this fighter's activations, all attacks made by this fighter gain the shock trait. If they're using a weapon that already has the shock trait, then its effects will trigger on any successful hit roll rather than just a 6. That one is brilliant. I really like that one. And that can be close combat or ranged. We then have the Life Spirit. Drawing upon the life spirit of Necromunda, the fighter's wounds heal and they are filled with fresh energy. This fighter removes all flesh wounds they have suffered and their activation then ends. They then perform no action. So at the cost of foregoing your action, you can get rid of some flesh wounds. It's okay, but there are tactics cards that do a lot better. We then have the Road Spirit. The ground underneath this fighter's feet becomes smooth and stable as the spirit of roads coalesces around them. For the duration of this activation, the fighter increases their movement characteristic by 2. Pretty cool. Again, it's not massive, but having 2 inches extra movement can be quite clutch, especially if you're trying to make a key charge. The next one is the Scrap Spirit, so the fighter becomes the center of a maelstrom of discarded equipment and metal as they invoke the Spirit of Scrap. Center a 5-inch blast marker on this fighter. Any enemy model hit by the template suffers a strength 3, damage 1 hit. That one's pretty cool. 5-inch blast is quite big as well. And the last one here is the Technology Spirit. So as the Spirit of Technology manifests near this fighter, weapons start to jam and glitch. Place a 5-inch blast marker anywhere on the battlefield within the central hole within 6 inches of this fighter. Any models, both friend or foe, under the template must immediately make an ammo test for every weapon they are equipped with as if they had rolled the ammo symbol on the firepower dice. I do like that one. The last sort of tribe here is the Lead Sky Seers, and they have 6 of the following. We have the Storm Spirit here. The fighter becomes one with the storm, appearing and vanishing with each rolling cloud front. If the visibility X rule is in effect, the fighter may be moved anywhere on the battlefield, at least X away from an enemy fighter, where X is equal equal to the distance invisibility X rule, their activation then ends. So you can just pick up your guy and put them somewhere else based on what the visibility X factor is. A lot of words in there. The next one is the motion spirit. As the fighter draws upon the spirit of motion, their outline blurs, appearing to move in every direction at once. As long as this fighter ends their activation at least 5 inches away from where they started it, they count as being in full cover until their next activation. Pretty decent, that one. We then have the blade spirit. This fighter's blades become keener, their razor-sharp edges carving through armor, flesh, and bone with equal ease. For the duration of their activation, any attacks made by the fighter using weapon with the melee or versatile trait change their AP to -3 and increase their damage to 1. So yeah, like a power pick with extra damage there. Very nice. We then have the Eclipse Spirit. So drawing on the power of the Spirit of the Eclipse, the fighter weakens the veil between the living and the dead. For the duration of their activation, this fighter may only make one close combat attack, regardless of any other effects. This attack gains the Sever trait. Very nasty. We then have the Chem Spirit as well. Corrosive chems bubble out of the ground all around the fighter, causing the surface to become noxious and foul. The liquid eating through armor and flesh. Place a 5-inch blast marker centered on this fighter. Until this round's end phase, all enemy fighters treat the blast marker as dangerous terrain. The last one is the Chance Spirit. Probability becomes malleable around this fighter as the Spirit of Chance manifests around them. For the duration of their activation, this fighter may declare that the result of 1d6 rolled is either a 1 or a 6. This must be declared before the dice is rolled, and there is no need to roll the dice. So that's pretty cool. You can change a dice roll to either a 1 or 6, depending on what it is that you're rolling for. So those are the 4 different tribes of the Wastes that you can draw from. They're pretty cool. It's a shame that they're only one shot, but like I said, it's almost, think of it like you're using 3 or 4 extra tactics cards in a game. They're just random tactics cards that you get to use almost. And I think overall, the Oil Run Stalkers is probably my favorite, the first list there. But let me know what you think in the comments down below about these and how you might think about using them in your games of Necromunda. The next thing we're going to take a look at here is the Nomad Trading Post. Not to be confused with your generic trading post, this one is much more stripped back and is only available for Ash Waste Nomads. Due to the nature of Ash Waste Nomads out in the Wastes, of course, they do have quite a bit of limited access to the stuff that you'd get on other gangs. There is no Xenos weaponry, there is no cursed weaponry, and there is no Imperial weaponry in here either. There are a couple of additions which do make Nomads a little bit better. I mean, Nomads already have access to some great heavy weapons, some great special weapons and whatnot, but there is definitely a lot less of it available here. So the way that this operates is pretty much exactly the same as your post-battle sort of trading actions. So you get +2 for the availability for a leader or a chieftain going to do a trade action, and it's +1 for every champion that you have as well, and then you also get +1 for every 10 rep you have as well in terms of the availability. Now, the availability rating ordinarily is called rarity or illegality. In this case, though, on the Nomad Trading Post, it is known as scavenge, but it's more or less the same thing. So let's take a look at the sorts of items that are available on the Nomad Trading Post. For basic weapons, we have the Blast Carbine, is a common item for 25 credits. We have the Blast Rifle, which is a common item for 15 credits. We then have the Las Gun, which is a nice addition here for 15 credits and scarcity level 7. We then have the Scavenged Auto Gun, which is the same as a Reclaimed Auto Gun and is available as common at 10 credits as well. And then we have the addition of the Shotgun, giving you a little bit more damage and a little bit more options in terms of the sort of general damage output that Nomads have at short range. This one's quite a nice addition here. It's 30 credits and it's scavenge 8, so it's fairly easy to get hold of here. You also have the addition of electrostatic ammo, which we'll go into in a little bit as well, and that's available for 15 credits at scavenge 9 as well. For pistols, we have the auto pistol at scavenge 7 and 10 credits. We have the blast pistol common and 15 credits. Then have the las pistol at Scavenge 7 at 10 credits as well. The Scavenged Stub Gun for 5 credits and common, and of course the Web Pistol, which is Scavenge 8 and 90 credits there as well, but is actually available on the house list for a lot of your Nomads as well. For special weapons, we have the Long Rifle, which is common and 30 credits. We have the Venom Caster, which is really nasty. We'll go into why that's so nasty in a minute, and that is Scavenge 7 at 160 credits, so it's very, very expensive, that one, and the Web Gun for 125 credits at Scavenge 8 as well. We then have two of the best heavy weapons in the game, in my opinion, and these are the only two that you can actually get access to in general for Nomads, but that's okay because we have the Charge Caster and the Heavy Blaster. The Charge Caster is Scavenge 7 with 155 credit cost, and you can also get electrostatic rounds for that as well, which are awesome. Again, we'll go into those in more detail shortly. Those are Scavenge 8 and 30 credits, and then we have the Heavy Blaster, which is Scavenge 8 at 140 credits. Both of those weapons are excellent. Both of those weapons I would highly recommend on your champions. We have access to 3 booby traps here as well. We have the Electrostatic Trap, which is Scavenge 9 at 50 credits. We have the Gas Trap, which is Scavenge 7 at 40 credits. And we have the Shock Trap, which is actually common and 20 credits as well. Very good value there. For close combat weapons, we have the awesome looking Chain Lance, which is available at common and 55 credits, as well as the Electrostatic Discharger that you can fix onto that for plus 20 credits and Scavenge 8. The Long Blade, which is common and 30 credits, and another good weapon there. We have the Mono Hook, which is Scavenge 7 and 35 credits, and another Stalking Knife, which is common and 20 credits here as well. Those are all the weapons that are available at a price from the Nomad trading post in post-battle. So you can give some of those close combat weapons to your Shadar hunters, but we're going to go and look at some of the weapon profiles that you get exclusive to those Shadar hunters, as well as all the rest of the weapon profiles available exclusively to Ash Waste Nomads. In terms of armor at the trading post, we have access to Carapace, Light and Heavy, Scavenge 11 and 12 in total there, with 80 credits for the Light Carapace and 100 credits for Heavy Carapace there as well. Flak and Mesh, both of these are common at 10 and 15 credits respectively too. You can also get access to all 3 types of field armor here as well. They are Scavenge 12, 11 and 13 as well respectively. 60 credits for the Conversion field, 50 credits for the Refractor field, and Displacer field is 70 credits as well. But remember, you can get those on your leaders and champs from the house list too. You also have access to all of the typical bionics that you can get for the other gangs as well. I tend to skip over these a little bit because they are just so expensive and hard to get hold of generally, but it's an option there for your Nomads if you need them. You can get the Dustmak Helamite for 60 credits as well, and that counts as basically a dirt bike in a lot of ways. The Electrostatic Pulse Emitter is also available for the trading post at 70 credits and Scavenge 10. We'll go into that in more detail soon as well. There's also a large number of personal equipment. Some of it is unique to Nomads, and that's what I'm going to highlight here today. The rest of it is fairly typical stuff like drop rigs and filter plugs and bioscanners, things like that. So we won't go into too much detail on that. There are some unique pieces of war gear and equipment that I will talk about shortly as well though. On top of all that, we also have unique chems that are available to Ash Waste Nomads as well, and this is pretty cool. You've got 5 different chems here which haven't been seen before, so we're going to go into some detail on those chems after I've talked through some of the new weapons and traits that we have here as well. In terms of the Nomad exclusive weapons and war gear here, we're going to start with the basic weapons. And the first basic weapon I'm going to talk about here is the Blast Carbine, a fantastic basic weapon that I tend to give to all of my Juves in Nomad gangs. The Blast Carbine stats are as follows. We have a 10-inch short range with +2 to hit at short range, partly why I like to give it to Juves, with 24 inches at long range, the same as an auto gun or a las gun. It is strength 3, no AP and damage 1. It's 5+ on the ammo. It is rapid fire 1 and shock, and that is 25 credits as well. So pretty damn good weapon that. I do really rate it. Rapid fire and shock with +2 to hit at short range. What's not to like about that? We then have the Blast Rifle, rifle. I can't really see myself ever taking the blast rifle over the blast carbine for a number of reasons. We have the same range here though, 10 inch at short range, 24 inch at long range with only +1 to hit at short range here. It's strength 3, is no AP, it's damage 1, but you do not have rapid fire. You do still have shock though. It is 10 credits cheaper, which is fine, but I just think the rapid fire and the +2 to hit at short range makes the blast carbine a much better weapon in general. Onto the special weapons now, and the only unique one you get for Nomads is a very unique one, and that is the Venom Caster. This is a template weapon. Again, it's incredibly expensive at 160 credits, but it is very, very scary, especially on fast-moving fighters with movement 6. This thing is a template, the same as a flamer. It's -1 AP. It doesn't have strength or damage, of course, because it is toxin, silent, scarce, and template, and that is 160 credits for that. So yeah, very expensive, probably not something you're going to start with, but you might want it later on in a campaign. Again, if you catch 5 or 6 fighters, heaven forbid, in a blast with toxin and they've got multiple wounds and you manage to actually wound them, that is potentially absolute devastation. So it is a very expensive weapon, but it's high risk, high reward on that one. Again, it's not the same as a chem thrower from Escher where you have gas in place of toxin. Gas does not pin. Toxin does pin. So you're still pinning people. That makes this weapon much better than the chem thrower ordinarily. In terms of the heavy weapons, I have highlighted both of these in my top 10 heavy weapons for Necromunda. The first one is the Charge Caster. This is a shoulder-mounted rocket launcher, and it is awesome. We have 3 different profiles for this now, where we did have 2 before. The first one is the Shock Blast, and this is my favorite one. It's 20-inch range at short and 40-inch at long, so you can pretty much cover any distance with this. It's +1 to hit at short range as well. It's strength 4, no AP, damage 1, but it is a blast 5-inch template, which is the same size as a McCain micro pizza, I believe. It's also shock and unwieldy, of course, because it's a heavy weapon, but shock with a 5-inch template at strength 4 is really, really tasty, I have to say. The next one is the Crack Rocket, though, which is the same at short range and long range with +1 to hit again at short range. It is strength 6, though, -2 AP, 3 damage, which is huge, 6+ ammo, and doesn't have any other traits other than unwieldy. So that's the one you're going to be using to take out enemy leaders and perhaps vehicles as well. So you've got your Crack and Charge Caster there. Now, however, you've got the addition of the electrostatic rounds as well. These have the same range profile, +1 to hit at 20-inch range as well. They don't have a strength stat, but they do have -1 AP, 2 damage, 6+ on the ammo, blast 3 inches, so the smaller template there, haywire, scarce, and again unwieldy. We're going to go into the haywire trait shortly though. I don't want to explain it just yet. It's quite a good one. We then have the Heavy Blaster, which is basically a heavy stubber, just a hell of a lot better. So this is 12 inches at short range, 36 inches at long range with +1 to hit at short range. No -1 to hit at long range, similar to the Heavy Stubber though, which is great. It's still strength 4, it's -1 AP, it's damage 1, and it has a 5+ ammo here as well. It is rapid fire 2 and shock with unwieldy. So that is pretty nasty if you're hitting on a 6 with rapid fire 2 and you're spreading those shots across multiple targets if you're lucky. Strength 4, -1 AP, a very, very good weapon, and 140 credits is a steal if you ask me. We then have the Electrostatic Booby Trap. Again, this is a strength 2 5-inch pie template with haywire, single shot. It's a pretty good one, and again, I'm going to go into haywire shortly. Now for the close combat weapons, my favorite bit. The first one we're going to look at here are the Bone Talons. These are available on your Shadar Hunters. They're not that good. They're strength as user. They're -1 AP and they're 1 damage, but they have rending. So rending, hit rolls of 6, or should I say wound rolls of 6 cause extra damage. It's nice, it's situational when it happens, it's lovely, but I just don't think they're the best weapon choice for your Shadar Hunters here. We then have the Chain Lance, which is awesome. It's basically a chain glaive, but slightly better and cheaper, I believe. It has a 2-inch versatile range with -1 to hit in close combat. It is strength +2, -2 AP and 2 damage, so basically the same stat profile as the chain glaive. However, it has lance, melee, unwieldy, and versatile as well. So the lance trait is another trait we're going to talk about in a minute. You can also get an electrostatic discharger for this as well, which keeps the same sort of range profile on versatile and whatnot. It's -1 AP instead of -2. There is no strength stat. It is 2 damage, lance, haywire, melee, unwieldy, and versatile on that one as well. We have 2 types of chitin weapons. The first one is the chitin dagger. Again, not a particularly exciting weapon. This one is strength as user, no AP, 1 damage, backstab, melee, and rending. So again, quite nice, but just not amazing really. The chitin gauntlet, on the other hand, is quite a bit better. I think it's strength +1, -1 AP, and 1 damage, and it has pulverize. So I quite like that one. Pulverize is a pretty good trait, and with -1 AP and +1 strength, it's not a bad weapon. We then have the Hunter's Polearm. I believe this is available on the Beast Wrangler equivalent for your Anthromite Dune Scuttler. So the Hunter's Polearm, again, is not a particularly exciting close combat weapon, this one. It's strength +1, it's -1 AP, it's 1 damage, but there's no versatile on it, which is a bit weird. I feel like it should have a versatile range on it. It doesn't, unfortunately, but you're hardly ever using this weapon as it's on a hanger-on. We then have a bit of a weird one, and that is the Insective Knife. This one is strength as user, -1 AP, 1 damage, backstab, chem delivery. So this one, you can pump chems into people. Personally, I mean, it's fun and fluffy and stuff, but personally, if I'm charging something, I'm going to want to kill it. So I'll usually take the chain lance in place of this one. But it is an interesting option if you can't kill your target and you want to just mess with people. We're going to look at the chems shortly and what you can actually do with this thing. But the Insective Knife is an interesting option and an addition to your Shadar Hunters as well. The next one's the Long Blade, and I quite like this one. It's a slightly longer sword. It is +1 to hit in close combat, which is excellent, just like the sword, actually. It's strength as user, but it's -2 AP as opposed to -1 on your regular sword. It's 1 damage, and it has parry as well. So it's basically exactly the same as a sword, but with -2 AP. That makes it a fairly scary weapon, actually. Parry is a lovely trait to have, but -2 AP means you're going through most targets, because most targets tend to have mesh armor at best, especially gangers and juves and stuff like that. So yeah, the Long Blade is a nice weapon, and the +1 to hit is just sort of extra nice, especially on a chieftain or something that has that weapon skill 3+. Suddenly it is weapon skill 2+. It's a very good weapon. The mandibles on the Brute Dune Scuttler are -1 AP, 2 damage with rending, which is pretty nasty as well on an already very scary fighter. Then we have the mono hook, which doesn't look like it sounds. There's no hook involved. It's basically a giant claw, as pictured on the Nomad Chieftain in the box here. I love the look of this weapon, and it's a pretty good weapon in the game too. It's about right for its cost as well, but here are the stats for the mono hook. It is strength as user, -1 AP, but 2 damage, which is where it really shines, and it has pulverize. So it's a pretty nice weapon, and for 35 credits, I think it's a decent one. Of course, you don't get any bonuses to hit or anything, but if you're giving this to a chieftain, it's pretty nice. I also love the idea of having a dual-wielding mono hook fighter in my gang with 2 big nasty claws. Very cool. Rule of cool on that one. I do like the mono hook. The next one is the Stalking Knife. This one is just basically a knife. It's +1 to hit though, which is pretty cool. It's -1 AP, and it has backstab as well. It's only 1 damage, but -1 AP and +1 to hit. You don't get +1 to hit on any other knife, I don't believe, which is quite nice to have. So it does make your juves, if you give this to a juve, for example, suddenly they're hitting on a 4+ instead of a 5+. It's not bad. We then have the Stormcaller Staff, which of course is only available for the Witari Stormcaller Champion. The Stormcaller Staff is a 2-inch versatile weapon with strength +1, -2 AP though, which is very nice, 1 damage, lance, unwieldy and versatile on that one as well. So nothing to scream about, but it's decent with that -2 AP and the lance trait. We then have the Toxic Mandibles, which are on the Ashwing Hellamite. I love these things. They are just -1 AP and Toxin. You know, on a fighter that's 30 credits, that's pretty damn good. And then the last 3 weapons here are all the best 3 weapons on the Shadar Hunters, in my opinion. We have the first one, which is the Trident. This is a 2-inch versatile weapon with -1 in close combat to hit. It's strength +1, -1 AP, 1 damage, but it has shock as well. So shock and versatile. It's basically a slightly better shock stave, perhaps. It's very similar to a shock stave. It looks like it should have more versatile range on it, but it is only 2 inches in this case, unfortunately. unfortunately. Then we have the two Venom weapons, and these are both awesome in my opinion. The first one is the Venom Stave, which is, it's not a stave in fact, it's more of a club, I suppose. It doesn't have versatile range on it, but it does have -1 AP with Pulverize and Toxin. So in my head, I'm not really sure how Pulverize and Toxin work, but, you know, on the wound roll, I suppose, if you're rolling a flesh wound, you can then use Pulverize on top of the Toxin wound roll. It's pretty nasty. It's going to put down a lot of targets, especially with that -1 AP as well. I do like the Venom Stave. My favorite, though, is the Venom Whip. This is a great weapon. It's 2-inch versatile, -1 to hit in close combat, unfortunately, but again, you're always going to be using this from versatile range, and it is Toxin as well. So having a versatile Toxin weapon on any fighter that's fast is really nasty, or even having two of them perhaps, as pictured on these Shadow Hunters. I did overlook the barbed fangs on the Anthromite Spineworm as well, by the way, which are the same strength as user, no AP on these, damage 1, but they have rending. So nice to have, you know, on a fighter that's 45 credits. Is it worth it? I think when you just got lots of those things en masse, burrowing through stuff with the rending every now and then, it's going to trigger and it's going to be a little bit nasty. So that's the barbed fangs for the Anthromite Spineworms that you get in the Shadow Hunters box. Now for the unique equipment and traits that we have for Nomads here as well. So as mentioned before, baked into the cost of all of your Ash Waste Nomads, you get the Ash Cloak and you get the Sky Mantle. And we're going to talk about those quickly now. The Ash Cloak is as follows. So designed to survive and maintain life in the midst of the Ash Wastes, an Ash Cloak provides protection against the harsh environment. It grants the following benefits. The fighter counts as being equipped with a respirator, so you get a free respirator built in there. The fighter's controller may choose for the fighter to ignore any battlefield surface effects when fighting a battle in the Ash Wastes as well. Again, situational depending on whether you're fighting in the Ash Wastes or not, but seeing as they're Ash Waste Nomads, it kind of makes sense here. And the last thing that it does is a fighter has a 4+ field armor save against any damage armor suffered as a result of weather effects when fighting a battle in the Ash Wastes as well. So you get a 4+ field armor save against weather effects, which is pretty cool there too. But again, it's not going to do much for you in the Underhive. We also have a war gear item in the shape of the Dustback Helamite. This one is basically in place of the Waster's Dirt Bike. It is 60 credits and gives you the Dustback Helamite stats with the Mighty Leap skill. Also, your fighter's movement goes up to 8 inches as well, and you get the mounted condition too, and the additional 1 attack from the Helamite too, which is pretty cool, which I think is a regular strength 3 hit with -1 AP on the Helamite claws there. Another unique piece of kit here is the electrostatic pulse emitter. This one you can get from the Nomad trading post for Scavenge 10, and once per battle, a fighter equipped with an electrostatic pulse emitter may perform the trigger pulse basic action. All vehicles within 12 inches of this fighter suffer a single strength, nothing, AP -1, damage 2 hit with the Haywire trait. Again, we'll talk about the Haywire trait in a second. Additionally, they all change their status to stationary and stalled, so pretty good that. We then have the Rocket Pack, which is only 5 credits by the way, and the first time each battle a friendly model within 3 inches of a fighter equipped with a Rocket Pack needs to make an ammo test for a charge caster, it is passed automatically. So what you do is you park a Juve with a Rocket Pack next to a charge caster and you get a free reload on that. It's pretty damn good for 5 credits. The next one baked into the cost of all of the Nomad fighters is the Sky Mantle. This one you can do a double action called Hide in the Wastes. If this fighter is at least 12 inches away from the nearest enemy model, they gain the Hidden condition. See the Necromunda core rulebook. Even if the current battle is not using pitch black rules, they become revealed if they move, as well as all the normal triggers for becoming revealed. So pretty good that one. You can basically just do a double and disappear, and then you can activate again in the next turn if you want to, or again do the double. The next one is the Treatment Pouch. This one is unique to Ash Waste Nomads too, and it is 8 Scavenge and 50 credits. If a fighter is equipped with a Treatment Pouch, they may perform a medical escort post-battle action, even if the fighter is not normally eligible to do so. However, a result of 6 on the table is treated as stabilized rather than full recovery. So it's basically a sort of rogue doc roll, I suppose, there for 50 credits, where you can't actually get a rogue doc otherwise, I believe. The next one, and I believe exclusive to the Shadow Hunters, is the Venom Sacks. This is 35 credits, and at the start of their activation, a standing and active or engaged fighter with venom sacs can choose to make an initiative test. So it is an initiative test, similar to a chem synth, but instead of your intelligence, it's initiative, which is much better. If passed, any weapons with the gas and or toxin traits they use until the end of their activation are enhanced by the target's toughness is reduced by 1 when resolving attacks with those weapons. So it is basically the same as a chem synth, but instead of intelligence, you're using initiative. Let's have a look at some of the interesting and unique Nomad chems here. These are all, again, new and exclusive for Nomads, and you can use these in your knives as well as a chem injection system too, so it's worth thinking about that here too. The first one is Milk of the Harpy, not to be confused with Milk of the Poppy from Game of Thrones. This is Scavenge 8 and 45 credits. Any fighter who has taken Milk of the Harpy increases their movement characteristic by 2 and their attacks characteristic by 1. Pretty nice. It's similar to Slaught in some ways. The side effects, however, each time a fighter under the effects of Milk of the Harpy activates, if they do not end their activation at least 5 inches from where they started their activation, they suffer a flesh wound. So great for just holding down an area as a close combat fighter. Not too bad. The next one is Ash Orchid Venom. This one sounds very cool. Each time a fighter under the effects of Ash Orchid Venom activates, they must make a willpower test before performing any actions. If they pass the willpower test, they may act normally. Otherwise, they may only perform a single action during their activation. Regardless of the result of the willpower test, at the end of their activation, the fighter removes 1 flesh wound. So that one's pretty cool. And again, you're going to use that on the enemy, generally speaking. The side effects of this one are during the recovery and restart step of the end phase, a fighter who has taken Ash Orchid Venom may attempt to shake off the effects of the chem. To do so, roll 2d6 and add the fighter's toughness. If the total is 10 or more, they have cleared it out of their system and are no longer under its effects. That one's great to give to an enemy leader or champion or something, or someone with low willpower, just to mess with them. And if they don't get rid of it at the end of that game, they'll be suffering the consequences in the next game too. Very cool, that one. The next one is Tears of the Storm. This is 45 credits and Scavenge 11. While under the effects of Tears of the Storm, a fighter may perform an additional action during each of their activations. However, they also gain the Insane condition. So it would be amazing. It would be absolutely broken and far too good if you just got an extra action. However, the fact that you gain the Insane condition really takes the shine off that one. I can't see myself using it. But again, you could inject an enemy with this and it would be quite fun seeing the effects of what happens. The last one is the Dust Stalker Mandible. This is 25 credits and Scavenge 9. While under the effects of Dust Stalker Mandible, a fighter ignores the effect of the Visibility X rule. So you just get to see in the dark. That one's awesome. However, the side effects for this one, a fighter who's taken Duststalker Mandible automatically fails any initiative tests they make due to the flash trait. In addition, all of their attacks gain the reckless trait as well. It's also highly addictive. During the wrap-up step of the post-battle sequence, any fighter who has used Duststalker Mandible must make a toughness check, adding 1 to the roll. If the check is failed, the fighter has become addicted to the Mandible. Once addicted to Duststalker Mandible, a fighter may only be included in the crew if they have taken a dose of these chems as well. This addiction can be shaken by paying 2d6 times 10 credits for anti-addiction chems during the post-battle action step of the post-battle sequence. So that one's pretty cool there as well. Can I really see myself using all of these? Probably the Ash Orchid Venom for enemies perhaps. And yeah, they're pretty cool though. It's nice to have some new chems. Chems don't get a lot of love in Necromunda, but I do like to see new chems brought in. Now for those juicy new weapon traits. So the first one we're going to talk about here is Chem Delivery, because I don't think I've really spoken about it too much before, and we've just talked about the chems there. So Chem Delivery. When a weapon with Chem Delivery, i.e. the knife there, trait is used, the fighter declares what kind of chem they are firing at the target. This can be any chem the fighter is equipped with. Note that using the weapon does not cost a dose of the chem, and that friendly fighters cannot be targeted. Or if the weapon also has the toxin or gas trait, the fighter can use these traits instead. Instead of making a wound roll for a chem delivery attack, roll a d6 if the result is equal to or higher than the target's toughness, or is a natural 6. The target is affected by the chosen chem, just as if they had taken a dose. If the roll is lower than the target's toughness, they shrug off the chem's effect. So that's what Chem Delivery does there. It's very, very cool and thematic. Now for the new trait, this one is Haywire. This is an anti-vehicle trait and it's pretty damn cool. When a vehicle is hit by a weapon with this trait, instead of rolling to wound on a d6, a result of a 4+, instead the vehicle is wounded. If a weapon with the Haywire trait has the strength of nothing, then it causes no damage to fighters and does not cause them to be prone or pinned. Otherwise, resolve hits normally. So basically, it's like rad, but for vehicles. On a 4+, you just wound the vehicle. Pretty damn cool. And there are lots of Haywire weapons in here to sort of counteract the fact that these guys don't have their own vehicles, or dedicated vehicles anyway. The next one is the Lance as well. This is available on your Chain Lance and your Stormcaller staff, I believe, too. The Lance is, while subjected to the mounted condition, increase the strength characteristic of this weapon by 1 for any attacks made as part of a ride by or charge double action. Now let's have a look at the Nomad tactics before I get into some of the list builds that I've got for you here. The Nomad tactics are as follows. The first one is Shock Traps. Play this gang tactic at the start of a battle before deploying starting crews. Deploy D3 shock booby traps on the battlefield. Pretty cool, that one. We've got Rig Hunters. Play this gang tactic after both crews have been deployed before the first roll for priority. Select D3 friendly fighters equipped with blast rifles. For the duration of the battle, their blast rifles are considered to be equipped with electrostatic emitters or generators. Pretty nice. We've got the Wasteland Medicine here. Play this gang tactic after both crews have been deployed before the first roll for priority. Select a friendly fighter. For the duration of this battle, they are equipped with 1 dose of any chem from the Nomad trading post. That one's nice as well, and those chems are quite expensive too and quite hard to get hold of. We've then got Blessed by the Spirits. Play this gang tactic when activating a friendly fighter before benefiting from a warrior spirit. Benefiting from the warrior spirit does not count against the number of times the warrior spirit can be used. So that's pretty cool. You get to use it again at some point too. We then have Frenzied Hellamite. Play this gang tactic when activating a friendly fighter before performing any actions. If this fighter is equipped with a Dustback Hellamite, for the duration of this activation, increase the value of the additional attacks on the Hellamite clause by 1. So you get 2 additional attacks with the Hellamite there as well. We then have the Great Spirit Speaker. Play this gang tactic at the start of the battle before generating any warrior spirits. When generating warrior spirits, 1 of the d6 may be rolled on the warrior spirits table of a different tribe. That one's pretty cool too. We then have Sputter. Play this gang tactic after an enemy vehicle completes its activation. Change the vehicle's status to stationary and stalled. So it's a bit like Click, but on a vehicle. We then have Dustback Knight. Play this gang tactic when activating a friendly fighter before performing any actions. For the duration of this activation, when the fighter performs a ride-by attack, they may make an additional attack. We have the Repurposed Scrap next as well. Play this gang tactic during the post-battle sequence before visiting the Nomad trading post. For the duration of this post-battle sequence, increase the availability level of Scavenge by 2 for each enemy vehicle wrecked during the battle. We then have Terror of the Wastes. Play this gang tactic after both crews have been deployed before the first roll for priority. Select a friendly fighter. For the duration of the battle, they gain the Fearsome skill. That one's a bit of a dud, I reckon. We've then got Bougalanche. I'm not sure how you say that. Bougalanche. Play this gang tactic instead of activating a friendly model. Target an enemy fighter within 6 inches of a friendly model. The targeted fighter must pass a willpower test or lose their ready marker. I quite like that one, but again, 6 inches. You've got to be up close and personal to use that one. The next one is Ghost of the Deeps. Play this gang tactic at the start of a battle before deploying starting crews. Select a friendly fighter. For the duration of this battle, they gain the Infiltrate skill. That's pretty nice to have. You do get access to cunning skills a little bit, but Infiltrate, always good. We've got Sandstorm here. Play this gang tactic at the start of any round of an Ash Waste battle before rolling for priority. Select a battlefield edge. Every fighter not on ground level is moved towards that battlefield edge as if they've been hit by a weapon with the knockback trait. I love that one. It's so cool. If you're playing against squats and they're all on a bunch of girders and stuff, bring them all off. That's fantastic. I really like that. Again, though, it has to be Ash Waste, that one. The next one is Nomad Snipers. Play this gang tactic when activating a friendly fighter before performing any actions. For the duration of this activation, when resolving damage against a vehicle, you may choose which location has been hit. There is no need to roll the location dice. Pretty good. We've also got Harrier Hunting. Play this gang tactic at the start of the battle before deploying starting crews. Add a Nomad Harrier to your gang and will not add any credits to the gang's stash during the post-battle sequence. A free bounty hunter as a tactics card is an excellent card. It's probably my favorite one so far, actually, just because the bounty hunters are very good. We've got Deadeye. Play this gang tactic when activating a friendly fighter before performing any actions. For the duration of their activation, if the fighter performs an aim basic action, they get +2 to hit instead of +1 as a subsequent shot. The next one is Vanishing Act. I really do like this one. Play this gang tactic during the end phase of any round before rolling for recovery. For the duration of this end phase, when rolling for recovery, any friendly fighters you may choose for them to go automatically out of action, and it's only treated as out cold. I really like this one because it takes the edge off it if you're getting absolutely pumped by someone and you've got a bunch of guys rolling around on the floor with one flesh wound left and they look like they're going to go out of action and suffer hideous, serious injuries. You can just use this one and they all go out cold. I like that one. It's very nice, but you're relying on getting your ass handed to you before that even happens. But I do like that one. I'd definitely include it in my list. We've then got Wasteland Wraiths. This is the last one, actually. Play this gang tactic when activating a friendly fighter who is standing and engaged before performing any actions. For the duration of this activation, the fighter treats the retreat basic action as a free action, and performing it does not trigger reaction attacks as well. So that's a get out of jail free card for your nomads that get stuck in combat as well. So there aren't any real broken ones in there, but my two favorites so far are Vanishing Act and Harrier Hunting for the free bounty hunter there as well. I do really like that one. Not bad. But again, you can also use the generic tactics cards deck that you get available to every gang in Necromunda as well. You don't have to just use these. Okay, into some of the lists here. I haven't done a huge amount of them here for you, but I'll talk through the sort of basic ideas that we've got here. The first one is my DACA list. So this is the absolutely shootiest list I could possibly come up with. What I've got here is a chieftain for 140 credits with a blast rifle and scavenged stub gun as backup here. Again, he's only got ballistic skill 4+, but I think having that +2 to hit at short range is really nice. This guy I've gone for has Overseer. So what he's going to do is shepherd your heavy weapons so that they can just shoot more and more DACA. So he's going to stay nearby your heavy weapons with Overseer, use that every turn, and if anyone gets too close, he's got the blast rifle with +2 to hit at that 10-inch range. But you are sacrificing your leader's activations through Overseer to fire off your two heavy weapons on the watchers that we've got here. The first one, of course, has the Charge Caster with Bring It Down as his skill, which is just fantastic. He comes in at 255 credits, this watcher. And we've also got the second one with the Heavy Blaster here at 240 credits with Trick Shot. Two very, very tasty heavy weapons. Both of them can just sit in a little gun line with your leader with Overseer, and he can pick and choose which one's going to fire when. And they can move around and shoot, things like that. Lots of shenanigans there with the Overseer and the two heavy weapons. We've then got a warrior specialist with a long rifle. The idea here is that you may as well take a specialist even if you don't give them special weapons. I've just given him a long rifle here. Obviously, he levels up slightly differently, so you're kind of missing out on not taking one otherwise. He's 90 credits. We've then got a similar warrior build here for 90 credits, also with a long rifle and with a rocket pack here as well. He's going to be parked next to your Charge Caster, giving him those free reloads on the Charge Caster. So you've got two long rifles, two heavy weapons, and an Overseer so far, all propped up by three Juves equally armed with blast carbines for 60 credits a pop. It's not a bad gang. It's very, very DACA. There's lots of rapid fire. There's some templates and there's some long range power here as well. This is the sort of arm's length sort of list that I'd go for. Obviously, if someone gets in close with you, you're going to be ripped to pieces. But having those three Juves plus the leader with the +2 to hit on the blast carbines, rapid fire and shock means that coming close to you is also going to be fairly tricky for most gangs as well. I do like this list, but it's not necessarily my favorite type of list. But if you want to go down the shooty route with Ash Waste Nomads, this is something that you could do. Again, if you want to make this more Ash Waste specific, you add 400 credits on and you take 3 or 4 Helamite Riders as well, perhaps with the Blast Carbines and Chain Lances too. And that is the DACA list. The next list is the polar opposite. It is up close and personal with close combat here, and the leader is armed very differently. We've gone for 180 credits on the Chieftain here with his scavenged stub gun and a Chain Lance as his close combat option. It's a very, very powerful weapon, especially in the hands of a chieftain here, who I've also given infiltrate to, and you'll see why in a second with the rest of the fighters on this list. So that's 180 credits for the chieftain here. The rest of the gang is made entirely up of the new Shadar Hunters with 4 of their little pets. The 6 Shadar Hunters in question are all armed differently to represent the actual box contents that you get here. The first one has a trident and is 95 credits. We have one with a chitin gauntlet for 90 credits. We have one with 2 venom whips for 125 credits. We have one at 135 credits with 2 venom staves. We then have one with 2 chitin daggers for 95 credits and another one equally armed with 2 chitin daggers. All of these are available in that box as well. And then we have 4 anthromite spine worms in here too, so you can attach these to either 2 on each or 1 on each, depending on how you like it. But that is the sort of close combat, right up in your face, nasty infiltrating shock troops list. The last list that I'm going to include here is my maximum insectoid list. This, of course, includes all of the pets as well as the brute here. So the chieftain in question here is 170 credits with a mono hook and a blast pistol with the evade skill just to be a bit sneaky and stuff. He also comes with 2 of the Ashwing Hellamite flying Hellamites, which are really cool there as well. Then we take the Anthromite Dune Scuttler for 210 credits, a real beast of a fighter, that one. We've then got a Watcher for 125 credits with a blast carbine and trick shot, who also takes 2 of the Ashwing Hellamites there as well. Then we have 2 of the Shadar Hunters, equally armed, one with a venom whip, the other with a venom whip as well, with a sort of view to getting another weapon later on in the campaign. 95 credits they cost, and each of them are taking 2 spine worms as well. So we've got 4 spine worms, 4 Ashwing Hellamites, and a brute in there. That's a pretty cool list, but of course there are only 4 fighters, I think, normally, if you count for bottle checks and stuff. So that one's a bit tricky to run, but I think would be really, really fun to do. And again, any of these lists, you just whack on the extra 400 credits for an Ash Waste list, and you give yourself a bunch of Helamite riders to make them Ash Waste equipped, and perhaps some electrostatic weapons as well, if you really want to go down the route of anti-vehicle too. Right, so this has been a very long video, so thank you for sticking with me on this. But I think overall, the Ash Waste Nomads not only are a fantastic looking gang, but now we have a fully fleshed out gang with lots and lots of shooting focus and lots of close combat focus too. Some insects in there. Yes, they don't have their own vehicles, and they are, obviously exclusive to Ash Waste in some ways. So I think really the main thing here to take away from this is, arbitrators out there, are you going to let these guys play in Dominion campaigns and other types of campaigns, and of course use the Sky Mantles and the Shadar Hunters in the way that they're supposed to be used in the Ash Wastes? That is a question for the community out there, so please let me know what you think in the comments. Stay tuned for the next video, and please do like, share, subscribe, and check out the Patreon as well, and I'll be back with another video real soon. Peace out.